Hello, my name's Ronnie Cairns. I'm the current chairman of the Cowhelen Gathering, and I'm delighted to bring this programme to you, paying tribute to Pipe Major John McLellan DCM of Dunoon. To start off the programme, I'd like to introduce you to some of the members of the Dunoon Grammar School Pipe Band, led by Pipe Major Craig Wilson. And they're going to play for you one of John McLellan's most popular tunes, Lochanside. Well, thank you, Dunoon Grammar School Pipe Band. Now, by all accounts, John McLellan was quite a quiet, shy and retiring man, and there's not a lot known about him. But one person does know him, and that's his grandnephew and a good friend of mine, Pipe Major Jim Henderson, and I caught up with Jim for a chat.
John McLellan, to begin with, was my great uncle. He stayed with my grandmother, who was his older sister. He was a very, very shy man and not any way push himself, the great talent that he had. When I was a young man, I was fortunate enough that my father sent me over for lessons and it was just, I didn't realise until I was older what a privilege that was to be taught. And he was a great player. He wasn't a competing player, but he was a great player, and he wrote some tremendous pipe music. He also wrote songs. He played the piano, he played the fiddle, and my father told me he was a real expert in the penny whistle. I said he's quite a character like that. And he painted, and he wrote poetry. He wrote one poem was about the section he was in the First War, and he had a verse for every one of them. So he had a great, great talent. Even on the walls of his bedroom, there were paintings of the lochan, as per the Lochanside, the tune, and there was a painting of a soldier lying in a stretcher, and the medics round about him, and he had done that in khaki blanco. His mother was from Jura, his father was from Islay, and they married in Glasgow and settled in Dunoon. Unfortunately, his father died early. His father was just early 40s when he died, and at that stage, his mother, who's named Mary Darrach of the tune Mary Darrach, she took them back to Jura for a while. And then, I don't know Mary, but they eventually come back to Dunoon again. I suppose age-wise he would probably be in his early teens when he came back, because it was not long after that he decided to join the army. Of course, he's a DCM, and people think he won his DCM in the First War. He didn't. He won it in the Boer War at Magersfontein, off the great tune. It's amazing that a man who's shy and quiet like that would do something that would award him the DCM. His career in the army was, he was in Egypt, he was in Malta, he wrote a tune about the bells of Malta, and one of probably his greatest melodies is, we know it as the Road to the Isles, but it was one of its other names was the Burning Sands of Egypt. The first thing about his composing was melody. I don't think he cared too much if the difficulty or lack of it. It was just melody was his thing. Although he did compose some good competition tunes, he wrote something like 167 pieces of music in his lifetime, which included songs as well as pipe music. He wrote a particularly nice song called Bonnie Dunoon, and the proceeds went to the 51st Highland Division Comfort Fund, because he wrote it during the Second War. Right. And he wrote others as well. But the talent, where he got the talent, why he got the talent, and you just don't know where these. But the good thing about it, he made use of his talent, and we all benefit from that. I had a book of unpublished tunes, and then there were his namesake John McLellan, Captain John McLellan of the Army School of Piping. He published his first book while I was on the Pipe Majors course, and I had this big book with me, which was in John's own handwriting or his own music writing. And he took several of the tunes and composed. They were never published. Unfortunately, the book itself, I think I left it with the Army School of Piping. I thought it was probably the best place to put it. He was just a phenomenal man. Some pipers I know call him a genius, and you can't argue with that. Really, you just can't argue with that.
Pipe Major John McLellan was also instrumental in the first of the Kilgathering collection of tunes.
That's right.
Tell me about that, Jeff.
It wasn't terribly long out of the army at that time. Probably when he came back to Dunoon after being in the police, it was a book, and all the tunes were composed by himself, and it was the first Cowl collection. And it was done in 1906, I think, about 1906. It's a tremendous, and the melody after melody after melody, which is brilliant. It's just amazing. And John was very versed in the written music, in the reading of music. Where at that stage, pipers weren't too clever at that stage. But apparently, John had gone to Neller Hall, the Army School of Music. Spent a year there, and obviously that's where he got his expertise in the written music. Probably that's where he learned to play other instruments, but certainly he was. There's a good story that the 8th Battalion went to Bedford to train up before they went to France in 1914, and there was some sort of band thing on, and a bandmaster from another regiment was running down the pipes and saying there were squeakies and what have you, and they weren't musicians. And what Jock did, what he did, he composed a military band march and set it to all the instruments and sent it to them. I thought that was brilliant. And that story has been verified several times in my lifetime with different people that talked to me about it. It was good. And that was the kind of humour he had. Yeah. You know, he instead of creating a row about that, he would just do something like that. It puts them in their place.
and a distinguished army career, as you
yes,
said.
Absolutely.
Then when he came out of the army, what happened then to John McLellan?
He joined, as far as I know, he joined the police. He certainly played in the Govan Police Pipe Band, but I'm pretty sure in these days you had to be a policeman to play it. And his brother Neil also was in the band. And he probably about a year or so in the band, and then he came back to Dunoon and to stay with my grandmother, and helped her to bring up the 7 children she had to bring up with. And you can imagine in these days it would be difficult. I know my grandmother had 3 jobs at one time, so he was there to help her to bring the kids up, and it was a great asset for the boys to learn to play pipes and what have you, and for me to learn to play. He taught Jimmy Wilson. Jimmy Wilson was a good player, a very good player, and Jimmy was actually pipe major of the 8th Battalion before John took it. When the previous pipe major died, I think it was 1915, 16, John apparently had been wounded and was away from the band at the time, and Jimmy Wilson, his pupil, took it over. Right. A lot of people think he took it over from the previous guy, but he didn't. He didn't take it over till 1919, just when the war was, or the state of emergency was finishing, and he took it over. His predecessor, Willie Laurie, Willie came from Ballachulish, and he died when he was 35, and he was a tremendous composer as well, the talent. And I've got a photograph in the house where they're both playing in the same band, the 8th Battalion band. I don't think it was a pipe major Ross at that time, it was a pipe major. But it was amazing that 2 talented people like him, like them, played in the same pipe band. Of all the great composers of pipe music, I would say he's probably the best, because he wrote the most tunes, and everything was based on melody. He just, even his more difficult tunes, the melody and the beautiful phrases that come out of the tunes. I mean, there's some tunes that one phrase just makes the tune. There's lots of it. Where this all came, for goodness knows, but I don't think I've ever heard a bad tune that John McLellan wrote. There's obviously some better than others, but I don't think I've ever heard a tune that it wouldn't be acceptable to be played. He was just a wonderful old man, and I was proud to be his great nephew. And I know my father was really proud to be his nephew. My father and him were very close. He died when he was 73, I think, which was far too early in today's terms. I'm 83 myself now, but he died far too soon. He was just such a gentleman. He was a lovely old guy, and I don't think probably I appreciated it till many years later. I certainly didn't appreciate how well known and how well respected he was in the piping world until I actually went to the pipe majors course and met a lot of pipers that I hadn't met, and older generation pipers. And I was amazed at really how well he was known and how well he was appreciated. But I think the thing I could say is that his memory is in his music. I mean, it's just a privilege to be able to play music like that.
That's Jim. We've known each other for a good number of years now. I really appreciate this and what you've been doing, for us, and helping us understand and a wee bit more about this great man, and he's certainly somebody to be remembered for times to come. I know there is a plaque where the local council erected in the Argyll Gardens as a somewhat a memorial, but I think it would be true in saying John McLellan made his own memorial in the countless number of tunes that he wrote and are still played and enjoyed today. So, Pipe Major Jim Henderson, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Hello again, and I'd like to thank Jim very much for his time and his insight also into John McLellan. I hope you enjoyed that and get as much out of it as I did. That concludes the first part of this series we're doing, Lads of Argyll. Some of you may wonder why we called it Lads of Argyll, and it was really called after one of John McLellan's tunes that he wrote, Lads of Argyll. And we have coming up this afternoon for you 5 fantastic pipers, all from Argyll, and they'll be playing a selection for you of a couple of tunes, and there's a lot of John McLellan's tunes within that. So that's something to look forward to, and we've got a great finale at the end of the day where all 5 pipers will come together. So thank you just now. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Bye.